Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back again to our sixth edition of the CEO Talks by Mood. My good friend Colin and I, today we have the honor to host Luc Vocks. Luc, very good friend. He is from Netherlands, currently staying for the last years in Chisinau in Moldova. Luc is leading the DevelopmentAid, one of the biggest worldwide platforms regarding granting financing by big donors such as the World Bank or the EBRD, USAID, and other big organizations. Financing in these times and accessing funds is difficult. And DevelopmentAid offers this opportunity to organizations and companies in these turbulent times. Luc, welcome, and I give you the floor.
All right, well, thank you very much, Colin. Thank you very much, Mamas, for having me. What you said is very accurate. I moved to Moldova about 13 years ago to build up my business. I've done so ever since. Now we employ about 180 people, mostly here. Our function is we are a data aggregator. So we follow a tremendous number of sources, the information they have, and put them all in a massive database, classify it properly, and make that data accessible to our clients. Our clients are organizations of any type, engineering firms, consultancy firms, the Big Four, most of the Big 10, the donors themselves. Pretty much anybody. We have about 1,500 organizational members that buy information from us. They buy the information about which grants and which tenders are available within international development. So, for instance, what is the World Bank interested in financing in Zimbabwe, or what would the EBRD now plan to do in Belarus? Such questions you can address to our system.
Wow. Wow. Well, thanks for that introduction, Luc. It's quite a comprehensive structure you've got there. We mentioned about the public sector, public and private sectors, and I guess we're going to have the opportunity in the next few minutes to demystify this a little bit. Of course, with the public sector, there's sometimes a stigma we're dealing in this area. Just briefly tell us, what is the reality, and more importantly, what are the opportunities here for anybody listening to this?
Okay, I would consider that at the moment the opportunity should look pretty good, because the private sector is suffering quite a bit, where the public sector isn't suffering quite as much. The challenges traditionally that people would list are that it's pretty non-transparent. It's pretty hard to find opportunities. Take, for instance, our sector, right, the donor-funded sector. Now, for us to be able to give information to our clients, we need to follow 400 to 500 websites on a daily basis. Now, that is very hard to do for an organization like, for instance, your own. I mean, the manpower you need to process all that data is just tremendous. So it's hard to find the opportunities. Generally, public procurement tends to be very slow, tends to be very bureaucratic. Procedures are very difficult to work through. To even understand the procedures are difficult. I personally, I'm quite familiar with European Commission procedures, but a couple of weeks ago I needed to work on a USAID project, right, to bid for a USAID project, and it was very, very, very difficult even for me to understand what their requirements were. Now there are hundreds of sources we track, but let's say about 100 big donors out there. They all have their own procedures, so it's very difficult to work this market from that perspective. Okay. Then there's a challenge that very often the margins are maybe not as good as the private sector margins. Especially, say, if you again go to the European Commission market, there are very many Polish firms, Romanian firms bidding for the same projects, and they're bidding against the Dutch firms, the German firms, the British firms, and obviously they have a cost advantage. Now, on different donors, that might work out differently. Say, for instance, DFID will prefer to work probably with British firms and will allow them the margins that they need. And, you know, there are nuances. There are, let's say, protected parts of the market.
Okay. Okay.
But overall margins might be lower than you're expecting, or that you're hoping.
So your advice would be, if you're going to get involved in the public sector, get all your business in order and very slick and fine, because the margins are going to be squeezed, but you can still make nice money on it if you do things in the right way. And you mentioned about the public sector was actually was continuing or even profiteering from, if I can use that word, from the COVID-19 situation, where the private sector very sporadically, depending on the market, is suffering. Let's go sort of post-COVID-19, whenever that is. Would you see the public sector kind of going back to as it was, or are things going to change in terms of procurement and getting business in this area?
Well, when I speak about public procurement, I'm speaking about public procurement in international development context, right? Okay. So that's the thing that I know something about. More general, I would be a little bit guessing, and let me try to stay factual. We see that the number of procurement notices being published in our sector has not decreased, but has even slightly increased. So there is currently more work being tendered out through our platform than in the same period last year.
Okay.
Now, I do hear from companies in our sector that some projects have been put on hold, some procedures, even though they're ongoing, are somehow not being concluded. So there are delays in processes. But it seems that the volume of money, the volume of work going into the market is stable or slightly increasing.
Okay. I guess for infrastructure, for highways and roads, this because there's not many cars on the road. So I guess maybe that has accelerated the projects coming into place now. Magnus, if I could just come to you on this, in terms of audit in the public sector, how is that sort of evolving through this crisis?
Indeed, I will add to what Luc mentions before. Public sector means also shorter profit margins. However, if you do it repetitively, this can help on the efficiency and effectiveness of the assignments in terms of auditing. Now, from our point of view, crisis means that you need to grow the business, the economy and the business afterwards. Growing the economy means government expenditure as well as capital expenditure. This means that we do expect that big organizations and the governments will put more money in public projects in order to do bigger projects, and for this to help their economies either in Europe or worldwide to regain growth. We are in a turbulent time, and this is a must, and we do expect that, indeed, answering to your question, the public procurement will increase in the foreseeable future.
Okay, so it's going to be kind of like a stimulus to the economy going forward.
Exactly.
I guess the emotional thing of seeing things happening is going to help business to have confidence and everything else as well. So it's interesting. Luc, we're going to come back to you. We're going to get a bit personal with you now, because we're going to go to Moldova, to your organization. You mentioned about.
I just come back to the previous question. There's a delay, right? I mean, government funding it's not easy to change money that's already committed. So the money hitting the market right now was committed way before, right? And that's why we're more or less seeing there's no change. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to change in a month or in 2 months or in 6 months, right? Okay. If the government wants to do big stimulus and wants to do, say, big infrastructural works, it takes a long time to ramp those up.
Yeah,
right? They cannot move so quickly.
We are talking about the decisions in the parliament to vote it, it's politics, is all this. Yeah, Colin, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Well, I was talking about Moldova because, Luc, I keep dropping this hint that I've never actually had the pleasure of going to Moldova. So I'm sort of trying to harvest some invitations to come along when all this is over. But just going back to your team in particular, you've got a large team based there. Changing subjects a little bit, talking about running an organization. How has it been with managing the work from home as well as keeping the business going? Are you in survival mode, growth mode? Have you found some real opportunities? Where are you right now, and where do you see yourself going over the next few months?
Well, in March, we went into survival mode. I was actually on Curacao, on a tropical island, when all this shit started to happen. And I traveled back in great haste from Curacao back to Moldova. But to my great fortune, my staff had already managed for everybody to be able to work from home. We had all the base infrastructure in place. I mean, we work through the internet, everything's online. You know, we're not really tied to a physical location so much, and that we're very lucky. So people were working from home. There was virtually no delay, no productivity loss, and our infrastructure luckily held up. But in March, there was great uncertainty. We didn't know how the market was going to behave. And it's only now that there's a little bit more certainty. Like we've seen the numbers now for March, we've seen the numbers for April, we've seen already a big part of the numbers for May. And like everybody else, we're getting hit, but we're not getting hit very, very hard. I mean, we are down compared to the same period last year by about 7.5%.
Okay.
Which I'm really not particularly worried about. I mean, when the world is collapsing around you and you're down 7.5%, you know, you open a bottle of champagne and you celebrate.
That's true. That's true. And are you going to change, you think, as we come out of this? I guess, you know, the effect is going to go way into next year. But has it made you look at your business in terms of the working from home balance, etc., or are you going to try and sort of keep what was working well and go back to that?
Even if I would want to go back, I can't go back. No, seriously, this Monday we opened up the office. So now people are able to work in the office again. Not all people, but we could probably handle, I don't know, 20-30% of the staffing just to test everything. Okay. I would love to test with 20 or 30% of the staff, except for that my staff doesn't want to come back to the office. They're very comfortable at home. I got 1,800 square meters here, and I've got 10 people in the building.
Wow. Okay, so I guess you have to look at, well, I guess the benefit, if you maintain the efficiency of the people working from home and you can reduce your office space, it could be a win-win. But I think what you're saying is you're still evolving into that and seeing how it happens over the next few months. So
when we moved people home, we did see a drop in productivity. You know,
you did.
We did. Okay. Well, historically, I already had a little comparison point. I'd given all my salespeople the possibility of spending 1 day per week from home. Okay. And there I saw a very interesting thing. I mean, we track the number of phone calls they make, the duration of their phone calls, and the number of emails they send, right? And what you saw is about 50% of the people could handle it. They would work the same from home as they would work from the office, and the other 50% could not really handle it, and you'd see basically productivity losses.
Okay. Due to external distractions and just circumstances, I guess, yeah, which I guess is understandable. So I guess the choice will come from the people, the productive ones, will want to and have a good sort of reason for staying at home. The non-productive ones will know they're non-productive, I guess, in a way, and be back in the office. Final question to you, really, overall as a businessman. What would be your key advice? Anybody listening to this right now, what would be the one bit of advice that you give to anybody watching this interview right now?
Well, in fact, if you're in trouble in this particular moment in time, it's already too late. But at least for the next crisis, simply hold more cash. Mm-hmm. I come out of a very specific situation, right? I'm a Dutch guy in Moldova, and I'm de facto non-bankable here. If I go to a bank for a bank loan, there's no way I'm getting that bank loan, especially if you know how banks work, right? If you need the money, you don't get the money. So I've always realized that we are non-bankable and nobody's going to save our ass. Consequently, I've had very big cash reserves at any point in time, and we don't have any, let's say, capital from banks or other people involved here. As a consequence, we are very liquid, and I'm very relaxed. Right? Okay. All the stress that's out there is not really concerning me. Okay. And I would recommend other companies to do the same, to basically start holding more cash.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So basically, what you're saying is it's not just Geely, but anticipate going forward. There's probably something else is going to happen, and just be ready for it. But be cash conscious and be cash prepared. Basically, I'm not going to make any jokes about the Dutch and money, by the way. So I just want to make that clear. So, Luc, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed, and I do look forward to visiting you. Next time I'm in Chisinau, which is probably going to be with Mamas. When we're getting on an aeroplane, I'm going to be on the seat behind him. But thank you very much for your time. Mamas, back to you for the final words.
Colin, thank you very much. Thank you for moderating our interview with Luc. Luc, it has been an honor to talk to you business today. And hopefully to see you in person quite soon with Colin and enjoy some wine or some beers in Chisinau. All the best.
It would be a great pleasure. Thank you, Mamas. Thank you, Colin.